Alright folks, this is Joe Imbriano. I know you may not be able to see me right now because it is dark outside, ladies and gentlemen, but we will enter a period where you'll be able to see me as I'm followed by a bunch of people driving cars with 5,000 degree Kelvin projector beams, folks. So anyway, this election night 2016, and tonight's the night where we're going to find out whether you voted to get punched in the face or punched in the stomach, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. You know, they've got you sitting in your chair, eating your Haagen-Dazs or drinking your Heineken, you know, watching the rigged event, and you know, it's like a Tyson fight at the MGM Grand years ago. You know, it's like we know, they know, but you don't, right? No. Look, folks, I want to talk to you about something that's going on that's a lot more important than splitting hairs over these political footballs they got us carrying around. And that is, in The Hague, in the Netherlands, folks, there was a 5G test that killed off a bunch of birds. All right? And this was just a couple of days ago. You know, it's a small town. About 300 birds over a couple of days just dropped out of the sky with hemorrhaging and cardiac arrest, folks. This technology, I keep talking about this technology. They got you watching the Super Bowl or the basketball bowl or the burrito bowl or whatever the latest bullshit is on television, and too many people are sitting out the fight of the century over what they're going to do with this electromagnetic weaponry, folks. I'm telling you, we're in deep trouble. You know, there have been instances where huge schools of fish have lost their course. Birds are flying backwards. You know, birds dropping out of the air. They have these weapons, folks. They've been testing them for years. They know how to give you heart attacks with radio frequency emissions. Just ask the 26 people that were in the Cuban embassy recently, United States embassy workers in the Cuban embassy for the United States, about the acquired brain injury syndrome they got by getting irradiated with millimeter wave or microwave energy weapons, folks. You know, we want to sit here and pretend that this isn't happening. Look, I was driving to work today down a street in Fullerton, and I watched this crew lay the conduit under the street, going under and putting these pipes in and running the cable through it, folks. And they're telling me, oh, it's for traffic light synchronization. And then I see some of these traffic light poles, triple the diameter going in of a normal traffic light pole. And they're hooking everything up, okay? And they're putting in these humongous diameter traffic light utility poles. Why? Because they're going to have stuff inside them, okay? And they're going to have big stuff on top of them, folks. They're slipping this stuff in, and everybody's asleep, and everybody's watching the Super Bowl. Is that what sporting event is on right now? Oh, it was the Red Sox? That's real important. I mean, I know you like that Masonic game, baseball. That's what it is. It's a big Masonic game. It's all laid out Masonically. And they got you yelling and screaming and choosing a team. It's all the false dichotomy. You know, the national or the American or whatever. I mean, look, you know, I used to play Little League, folks. I used to play baseball when I was a child. My kids played ball. It's not going to be their life story. It's just a game. But too many of you are sitting on a couch or in a chair staring at that satanic technocrat device that is destroying your mind, and the cable guys are in the backyard hooking up the wires, getting ready to put the weapons on the pole in your backyard. And you're going to sit this one out just like you sit the one out that's going on in the schools right now with your kids. That's right. These children are being electrocuted in the classrooms with a different type of weaponry. They're being They're being irradiated with microwave weapons, ladies and gentlemen. And these microwave weapons are giving children autism and cancer and insomnia and ADHD and infertility and blood clots and blood abnormalities. But these millimeter waves that are coming on the 5G systems, these are the real mamagassos, ladies and gentlemen. Can you folks see me okay? I know it's kind of dark. I'm not going to turn my light on in here. And look, YouTube is playing games. You know, the people that control YouTube, you know, they're not really happy about the truth getting out. So they're going to suppress views and delete subscribers and shut off notifications. That's what's going on. I just want you all to realize that it only took 2 or 3% of the population to win the Revolutionary War in the United States. And you need to be part of that 2 or 3%, folks. There's going to be a lot of people that have already lost their children to the sterilization, to the cancer, to the injections. There's a lot of people who have already turned their backs on their children because they've chosen to drop their kids off to get irradiated every day instead of fighting for their children and taking the steps necessary to protect them. And you know who you are out there. And this message isn't for you. Because if you'll hand your children over to the pediatricians to get injected with all kinds of stuff that hasn't been tested for sterilization, for cancer virus inducement, and cancer inducement and poisoning, that's right, folks, the vaccines. If you vaccinated your children, this message is not for you, because this message is for people that really want to make a difference and survive what is coming. Because these hundreds of birds that have fallen out of the sky in this small town during a 5G test in the Netherlands, they're the canaries in the proverbial coal mine, ladies and gentlemen. You see, the millimeter wave weapons that have been developed by the military are now being deployed under the guise of improving telecommunications. That's how it's being sold to us. We keep hearing about how we're going to have faster downloads and driverless cars, but they're not telling you that there's going to be fatherless children and motherless children and childrenless fathers and mothers. You see, that's the net result of this extermination program that is being rolled out while you roll up your sleeves and yell at your frickin' television sets. All right? That's the deal, folks. You know, it's all real. It's all happening. There's a tremendous amount of money going in to putting this weaponry in. I want to tell you something, folks. There isn't a day that goes by that this phone doesn't work right. I don't have any problems with bandwidth or downloading things, no matter where I am, unless I'm in the city council chambers, because I got a sheet metal roof in there with really neat properties. They've got this metallic roof that was actually placed in there for a variety of reasons, and one of which I believe does a great job of blocking the communications. You can't stream inside there. But the point is that the current infrastructure is totally adequate. We're being lied to, folks. They're trying to justify a weapons deployment by conning us into believing that we need a system that will support driverless cars. I don't need driverless cars. I need a bunch of illegal aliens with matricula cards driving around a bunch of jalopies deported. We need to get rid of some of the traffic. We don't need to get everybody out of the cars so that they're being driven by machines that can kill people. We need to get the people off the road that have no driving experience and no insurance and bad brakes before they kill somebody, folks. That's what's going on, but they won't do anything about that. So today, I hope you enjoyed your choice between getting punched in the face or getting punched in the nuts, because that's what you're voting for. All right? And the majority of people out there, you've probably already voted, and I've already voted, and I'm done. I did my duty, even though I question whether it has any effect, because every election I ever vote in, everybody I vote for never gets elected, and every proposition I either am opposed to or support, the votes go the opposite direction. And so that tells you that the course is predetermined, And it's either being predetermined by criminal activity by those who control the voting machines, or by the massive mind control of the moronic masses that watch the idiot box. I don't know which one it is yet, but it doesn't matter. The net result is still the same disaster. I want to keep focusing on the two biggest threats to everybody right now, and that is 5G and vaccinations. Because those are the two things that they're forcing on us under the auspices of necessity for economic growth and under the auspices of protecting the health of our society. And none of those claims could be further from the truth, folks. It's absolutely unbelievable. You know, they've managed. Okay, I know some of you, all right, you don't want to take your kids out of the schools that have the radiation weaponry deployed in there. You don't want to shut off your Wi-Fi in your house. You don't want to get the wireless gaming systems out of your house. And you don't want to say no to the pediatrician as they keep jabbing your child full of all these toxic vaccines. And you don't want to say no to that smart meter on your bedroom wall that's hooked into the 110 and the 220 volts coming off the transformer. Do you know what they could do with that smart meter? Do you have any idea how complex and powerful those smart meters are and how they're going to tie into the 5G? Do you have any idea? Can you imagine hooking up an electrical meter to your natural gas line, folks? Do you realize people in my community actually have allowed the gas company to put smart meters on their gas meters, folks? They've got an electrical device hooked into their gas line that can be remote controlled. Are you kidding me? You know, that's a great way to have your house blown up by somebody that doesn't like you. All right? This is crazy, folks. I don't even want to go into how the weapons grid is almost complete. But the most effective part of the weapons system is going to be the millimeter wave systems, and that is because they are the most capable of delivering the biggest amount of data and damage at the same time to Big Brother and inflict the damage on us in the process, neurologically and physiologically, folks. These millimeter wave systems are extremely dangerous. They claim they're not tested when in fact they've been tested for a long time, ladies and gentlemen. They know exactly what these things do, and they run these tests and the birds drop dead right out of the sky, hundreds of them. You know, one of the most joyous parts of my walks at lunchtime is to watch the cycles of the birds. You know, where I live in Southern California, we have sparrows, we have finches, we have mourning doves, we have crows, we have blackbirds, we have mockingbirds, and in some cases we have egrets, and upon occasion I'll see seagulls. That's right. And you know, at the different times of the year, the seasons always coincide with the mating calls of the doves and the playful chirping of the sparrows and the finches hopping around in bunches from tree to tree and bush to bush. And you know, the crows appear early in the morning in the fall, and the blackbirds show up in the spring pulling worms out of the grass. And you know, all these birds, they're magnificent to watch, and all the while the hummingbirds 12 months a year pollinating what the bees have abandoned because the bees have been destroyed by the microwave towers. The birds are really special, folks. You know, they're really beautiful. They're amazing. They're amazing to watch. They're an incredible miracle of God's creation. And they're really happy, and they're really free, and they're all dying. And the numbers are way down. I remember as a child, folks, I remember watching the birds fly south for the winter. I remember watching the formations of massive amounts of birds flying overhead in Orange County in V formations. You don't see that anymore. I remember the sheer numbers of the sparrows and the flocks of pigeons, and you know, it's not that we don't have more trash on the ground for these birds to eat, and it's not that we don't have more trees, and the trees and landscape are more mature than ever and bigger than ever, but the numbers are declining, folks. I remember the wasp nests and the dragonflies and the butterflies, the monarchs, the cabbage moths. You know, the little moths on the nasturtium plants. And you know, when I was a kid, I used to be able to go up to, you know, to some of these plants and literally catch the moths with my 2 fingers and put them in a jar and, you know, analyze them. There were so many insects when I was a child growing up. You know, you would go by a bush and they'd be buzzing, you know. It's all gone. Anything with an antenna is under attack, and now the birds are dropping dead, folks. They're falling out of the sky. They had this test in The Hague, folks, in a small town. Hundreds of birds dropped dead, cardiac arrest, hemorrhage. No pathogenic exposure confirmed, no cause of death confirmed, just a random bird kill, falling out of the sky, hemorrhaging, and heart failure. Now, that is really scary, folks. I cannot emphasize enough how they can literally kill you with these weapons. They can. Depending upon how much power they want to crank out and what frequency they want to turn the thing on and tune into, and what modulation. It is unbelievable how asleep everybody is. Instead of sitting there singing "What Would You Do for a Klondike Bar" and watching that thing put you to sleep as they have a knife to your throat, why don't you open your eyes to the fact that you've actually been lulled into complacency, into a coffin that has surround sound, ladies and gentlemen, with room service, okay? That's pretty much what they're setting up for everybody. And they got everybody fighting back and forth over the left and the right and this and that, and it's all a false dichotomy, folks. There is a small group of people that are in total control of this satanic technocracy. And their boss means business, folks. Well, you know what? My boss means business too. His name is Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach. And I'm not going to stop telling the truth about what is being done to humanity by these people. Because what have we got to lose when we've already lost it all? Most of you have children that have been damaged by these agendas. You have family members that have been damaged by these agendas. You have parents that are being euthanized by these agendas. You have people that you know and love that are falling victim to these bizarre ailments that have no explanation as a result of the rollout of these agendas. And so, are we supposed to sit back and just accept all this and wait for the din-din bell every night? No, ladies and gentlemen. We have been called to a higher calling. We have no choice but to stand up, folks. I keep talking about the same couple of topics because every day it becomes more and more evidently clear that what we're being surrounded by is not what they're telling us. And these systems that are being sold to us are being hyped and promoted by people who don't understand what they're part of. But at the very top, the people that are pulling the strings and writing the paychecks know damn well what they're involved in. You know, there are people that have absolutely no problem killing us off because their god is Gaia. They worship the earth, and they feel like they're doing their god a service by eliminating and eradicating massive amounts of people. There are many people who have an ideology that believe that it is acceptable and moral to sterilize people without their consent and to soft kill and slowly destroy people because they look at us as useless eaters and useless breeders, ladies and gentlemen. And those are the facts. And the untold scale of human suffering that's induced by these megalomaniac psychopaths that have risen to the echelons of power in government, law, and academia and medicine is staggering, folks. And there's a common denominator in the mindset of all of these people, and it is eugenics. They have bought in to the mantra And they are disciples of that movement, folks. And they act accordingly. And it's a very tightly woven network at the top. And it is locked down at the lower levels. And people, they fall into line. And they don't get out of line, folks. It's amazing. I've witnessed it at local levels when I try to explain things to school board members or council members or even state legislators or county school board members or even federal officials and even some law enforcement people that I know. It's unbelievable. The cognitive dissonance, it's really something that it defies understanding, and I don't have any words to describe it except that we're in a lot of trouble because people's priorities are all placed in the wrong things, and just about everything they have us fighting over is what kind of this or that can we get with more money. And actually they're making us kill each other to buy the best weapons. You know, I remember hearing about growing up, people keeping up with the Joneses. Now it's about keeping up with the Joneses to see who has more sophisticated weaponry aimed at their family. You know, like now there's this big push to drive these electric cars, and I would venture to say that not one person I know that owns a Tesla has ever taken a Gauss meter in the driver's seat with them as they drove that thing down the street. They would be horrified to realize what they're doing to themselves and their children as they drive one of these cancer chambers down the road with all the Wi-Fi going on top of all the electromagnetic fields. And all these new cars, you can't get away from the onboard electromagnetic sensors and relay systems and Wi-Fi communication systems. And they've got the 5G coming to the houses now. They're going to put it on the poles. They're going to put it on the wall. They're going to put it on the walls of public buildings. They're going to put it on the light poles. They're going to put it on the schools and the hospitals. And you're going to have to buy a special new-fangled Wi-Fi router called a WIKIJOE system to bring it into your house. You know, they do these experiments in these remote places, these small cities where, and there's no media coverage of this stuff. They report these birds falling out of the sky. It's just, they run into an iceberg up there like the Titanic or something. I mean, come on. Well, they expect us to believe the ridiculous explanations, and most people do, because it allows them to remain in their comfort zone. And they want to believe that they can't believe people like me, because I believe the earth is flat and there is an orchestrated conspiracy to kill everybody. I mean, it's not hard to notice it. All you have to do is go to the grocery store and the first thing you see is flu shots here. And you walk in and everything is a weapons dump in there. It's unbelievable. And yet these cables are going in all over the place with the orange writing, and the transmitter towers are getting set up. They're going to crank it up, folks. They're going to crank it up. And you can't sit back. We got about a 2-year window to win this thing, folks. They're behind schedule. They don't have their phones that work with this 5G crap. They overheat. The power demands of a 5G millimeter wave transmitter handheld are just too vast to handle the battery. The battery technology that's in current existence today is not adequate to power the demands of these systems that they're trying to get into a handheld. The processors, they run too hot, they use too much power. They just don't have batteries developed yet for these phones, folks. That's why you don't have 5G phones out there. Oh, they may call them 5G phones, but they're not true 5G phones. They're actually a cheap imitation hybrid, and they'll admit that too. But one thing they're not skimping on is the gold rush to put up the antennas to cook us with. That's right, because that's their plan. And when people start getting paralyzed, they're going to blame it on some neuroinvasive encephalitic disease borne by a mosquito, or the emergence of polio because of the people that don't vaccinate. See, that's their backup plan, folks. That's their Disease X cover story, when in reality it's going to be a millimeter wave bombardment that induces all of these different neurological and pathological symptoms in innocent people that are totally unsuspecting and will fall prostrate at the doctors for solutions. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is their plan. And in doing so, millions upon millions of unsuspecting people will find themselves on the pharmaceutical flypaper with all 4 of their appendages on multiple prescriptions and medications. That is, of course, unless we stop them. And one of the ways we could stop them is to get the word out and get out in front. Because if you call them out on what they're going to do, they're not going to pull it off. If you call them out on a false flag they're going to run, and if it gets enough publicity, they won't pull it off. If you call them out on what their agenda is, like when the Vector Control District of Orange County actually had found St. Louis encephalitis mosquitoes in Orange County, they wanted to really spray us and they couldn't get away with it. So guess what, folks? The West Nile scare wasn't enough to get people to go along with the spraying, so they concocted a scheme. And that was, well, I guess West Nile encephalitis, or St. Louis encephalitis will scare the people. So what did they do? Well, they found mosquitoes that tested positive for St. Louis encephalitis, and they made a big deal out of it. But here's the problem. I made a big deal out of the fact that they found them in the traps that were on their own property. And I accused them of staging an outbreak. And you know what, folks? The outbreak never happened. See, if you can get out in front of these false flags, they won't run them. If you can get out in front of these fake epidemics, they won't set the fake epidemics up. And if we can get out in front of what the symptoms of the 5G are going to be that they're going to blame on disease X, they may not be able to pull this off. And finally, folks, we have to pray in the name of Jesus Christ, in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, to stop this satanic technocracy's attempt to squash human life as they try to cram us into these kill grids, as they've got us hypnotized with these satanic mind control devices called televisions and computer screens. God help us, folks, because everyone's staring at one, and I know I've got to use this to communicate with you, but sometimes you have to use their own weapons against them, and that's a fact. All right, folks, that's it. We know what's going on, and when you see a bunch of, a dead beehive or a bunch of dead birds, they're going to tell you it was West Nile or something else. It could very well have been an electromagnetic display. It could be a fake. And by the way, all of the radar installations that have been in use for years for the government, they're going to redo all those. So, all these phased array and Doppler installations that dot the landscape, those are all getting a new makeover. They're going to go and they're gonna replace all those things. I mean, it's unbelievable, folks. I mean, they've got the weaponry everywhere, but you got to hold your ground on your property. You can't let them put this stuff in your yards and in front of your house. I'm telling you, you cannot go along with this, folks. And I know most of you will, just like you drove by me standing out on the sidewalk with these banners as your children are dropped off at school with those weapons in their laps that are literally burning up the eggs in your daughters. And I have been speaking about this for over 5 years. And the information on Apple's corporate headquarters and the iPad and the sterilization agenda involved with Apple has been public knowledge for 5 years, ladies and gentlemen. And not one school board member has bothered to do anything about bringing an end to this horrific agenda. And yet tonight, they're being asked to get reelected. All I could say is, in Jesus' name, may we prevail, and most people are not going to come through this. Most people are going to roll over, and their children are going to pay the price. But like in the days of Noah, there were those that saw what was coming and got in the ark, folks, and it's the same thing today. And it was a pretty small remnant then, and I foresee the same thing taking place in the immediate future. You've been warned. God bless everybody.